happy April Fool's Day. I hope everyone had a good Easter. I hope everyone has been celebrating a good Austera, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you had a good day yesterday. And today I just wanted to make a quick little video about kind of the planetary alignments as far as like the Mercury retrograde in Aries, which I know everyone has been kind of freaking out about. But I have to say, like, this morning there was a weird energy, and I posted it on my Instagram and my stories because I got up and there was just this odd energy in the air. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It just felt odd and off. And then I remembered it's April Fool's Day, so I don't know if every year that kind of energy just like builds up, and it's just like a slightly kind of chaotic energy in some ways, and it could be because we're gonna get a bunch of storms here later on tonight, so maybe it's that. I'm not sure, but I'm telling you what, I woke up not wanting to go to my combat class. Like, something was telling me that I just shouldn't go tonight for some reason, so I don't think I'm gonna go. And I love that class, so that was interesting. And then on the road driving today, there was just like a lot more people just kind of wandering around, not really looking like they have much of a purpose, that they're just wandering around, and some of them looked a little unsettling. So I'm like, I don't know what is going on today, but and then like there were tons more police cars and ambulances, like everywhere. I must have driven past at least 10 police cars, and then 4 other incidents like along the road. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but I just feel like this very odd energy. And then of course I've been reading about how the Mercury retrograde is going to be in Aries, and how it's just the energy is going to be maybe a little bit more chaotic than normal, and that tempers may get kind of high. So you know, Aries is a very bold and spirited zodiac sign, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But they can become a little bit brash and a little bit heated when, you know, they get triggered. So the next 3 weeks, that's going to be kind of something you want to look out for a little bit. Communication, once again, may just be misunderstood. It may be dropped completely. You're going to really want to make sure you're proofreading everything before you send something, and just maybe double check to make sure that you really mean whatever you're saying or whatever you're sending to people, because yeah, that dynamite fuse might be a little bit shorter than normal. So just be aware of that. You're going to want to make sure you plan ahead, especially if you have any trips within the next 3 weeks. It's not saying don't take a trip during a Mercury retrograde. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to happen. But just to ensure that, you know, you have your best chance, make sure you double check everything. Make sure you maybe add in some time for anything unexpected that might pop up. There's no guarantee that, you know, you're going to have a hard time, but like, for instance, this morning I went to get on my computer here. It turned itself off. I didn't turn it off last night, and it had literally turned itself off, and it didn't even like update or anything, because I know that can happen sometimes where it'll just randomly choose a time to update. There's no indication that it was doing anything. It just shut off. I was doing a lot of spirit work with my tarot cards last night, so it is possible there's just some energy and it was feeding off of that. I don't know. Also, I'll give you a really cool tip that I figured out last night with my tarot. But anyway, read the fine print on everything. Don't necessarily take everything that anyone says like super personally. If something is maybe a little hurtful, maybe understand that that's not what they actually mean. And also, at the same time, don't shy away from being brave and to speak up against like something or for yourself. And you can do it in a right way. Just remember, more bees to honey than to vinegar. So there's a right way and a wrong way to go about things. Obviously, we're all adults here. We don't need to, have that lecture or anything, but just a friendly reminder. Sometimes, as much as I would love to yell at some people in my life, it's just maybe not worth my energy. Which I was also told that last night in my card reading, that there's a specific person that I really desperately just want to kind of curse right now. And it's just, some of it is just wounds that have not healed yet, and another part of it is just, I was given a lot of clarity though in my reading, so we're just gonna leave it at that. And my spirits told me not to curse this said person, because I guess in a couple years most, this person is actually going to be a benefit to me. So I'm like, okay, fine. I won't touch said person, even though I really want to. But yeah, okay, let's talk about April Fools a little bit. The history of it, because we all know about it. Some of us celebrate it, some of us celebrate it a little too hard. But where did it come from? Like why is it even a thing? And so honestly, historians aren't exactly sure exactly where it came from. There's a lot of people that have ideas of where it might have started, but nobody has like concrete information. And so there's a few theories. The first dates back to 18, oh my gosh, words. See, communication. I shouldn't even be doing a video right now. Oh my gosh. 1582, when France switched their calendar over. So it was originally the Julian calendar, and then they switched it to the Gregorian. So that meant that, of course, witches, we kind of celebrate, some of us celebrate two starts to the new year, because it used to be that, yeah, like April 1st was kind of the new year. And then they, of course, switched it to January 1st, which I honestly think is kind of stupid, because who's actually freaking motivated on January 1st to start anything new? I mean, it was kind of brilliant having it be kind of in the spring where things were growing and you had motivation again. You were outside and spring cleaning and all these things that very much associate kind of more with like the start of something new. It feels a lot better than January 1st, where it's cold and bitter and all the fun events of Christmas have passed and you're just like, okay, what now? So yeah, that's the first theory. And so both the Julian calendar and the Hindu calendar had always began the new year on April 1st, because it was the spring equinox. So there was a lot of people during that time were slow to realize the change, or some of them continued to celebrate in March, like the end of March into the first part of April. And so these people kind of became the butt of the jokes of the town, saying that they were April Fools, and there were pranks that involved putting paper fish on people, and they called them poisson d'avril, meaning April fish. So this symbolized like a young and kind of gullible person. However, there's also the theory that obviously it was springtime, so the fish were coming out of kind of like their hibernation, so to speak. And so the fish themselves were a lot easier to catch, therefore they were considered more gullible, and so it could have just been a term used at the time and not necessarily associated to April Fools, but that's just one potential theory. There's also a book written by, his name was Chaucer, called The Nun's Priest's Tale, and it involved like a rooster fooling a fox and a fox fooling a rooster. I think it was vice versa. And it talked about kind of, or at least referenced, like April Fools. But some believed that the date on it was scribed wrong, and so they thought it was on April 2nd instead of April 1st, but that's kind of a minor thing, so there's not enough proof to say one way or the other. Another possible link is the Festival of Hilaria, and that is Latin for joyful, and this was celebrated in ancient Rome back in the day. It marked the end of March and was celebrated by the cult of Cybele, Much like Mardi Gras, people dressed up, they walked around poking fun and making fun of people. They also enjoyed making fun of the magistrates, which you very much see that in Mardi Gras as well. We love to pick fun at our political leaders any chance that we get, because why not? They kind of deserve it. This was also inspired by like Egyptian legends such as Isis, Osiris, and Seth. Some believe it was tied to the vernal equinox, or the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere, like I kind of mentioned before. But they also said that Mother Nature had a hand in it, as she made the weather around this time of year very unpredictable. And I mean, honestly, if you think about it, the weather around this time of year is kind of a joke. Like, one day you have this beautiful 70-degree weather, the next day it's snowing, the next day it's 90 freaking degrees. Like, there's no regulating body temperature around this time of year. So April Fool's has made its way around and spread to Britain during the 18th century, as well as in Scotland. And I kind of like the Scottish. They make me laugh, or at least in this particular way they make me laugh. So the Scottish went above and beyond and made April Fool's a 2-day thing. And so there was part number 1 where it was hunting down the gulk. And gulk is a word that means like cuckoo bird, and another symbol for like the fool. And so this event involved people being sent out on made-up errands. The second day was tally day, and pranks such as the traditional kick me signs were placed on people, as well as like pin the tail on a human. So, you know, why not? Like, let's just bring out our childish wonder there. So I found that kind of funny. The first true account of April Fool's Day comes from the poem written by Edward D. Dean, and it was written in 1561. In the poem, there's a nobleman who sends his servant out on these crazy, just ridiculous errands. And of course, eventually the servant finds out that he's running fool's errands, so to speak. And but apparently that was like on April 1st, I guess. So story goes. This tradition has been celebrated like all over the place. So there's accounts in Germany as well as Canada. There's a couple other authors that mention it. One of them is John Aubrey. He mentions it in his book, I'm gonna butcher this, Remains of Genesime and Judicime. It also appears in the Poor Robin's Almanac. And then lastly, there's a diary entry by Anne Green Winslow, and she was from Boston, and she introduces like the wild goose chase idea, saying that her father would send her mother on a wild goose chase on April 1st. And as always, like I kind of mentioned before, it is not uncommon for politicians or any group of people in that general grouping to kind of be the butt of a lot of the jokes, because like I said, why not make fun of political leaders? We do have freedom of speech after all. But by the late 19th century, there were 3 jokes that were incredibly common, and there's a lot of art that is found in like the archives of these like political cartoons kind of. And the 3 jokes involved 1, putting a brick under a hat in hopes that somebody will just have the urge to kick the hat and then have a giant bruise on their foot because they kicked a brick. And then the second one involved the one has been around since the beginning of time, where you tie a string on a wallet or another desirable object, you set it somewhere in hopes that someone's going to try and pick it up, and then you yank the string and make them look like an idiot. And then the third one was, which I don't know why we decided this was a fun thing to do, we would light a coin like under fire or a cigar and then leave it on the ground for someone to pick it up and burn themselves. So obviously it's no surprise that a lot of April Fool's things kind of come from a background of a little bit of light-hearted cruelty in a way. I mean, anyone who searches the internet or even newspapers can see the vast amount of pranks, some much more lighthearted than others. You know, the cellophane on the toilet, those things that people love to do. As well as politicians, unfortunately teachers also get the brunt of April Fools. That's kind of sort of where the tack on the teacher's chair kind of came from as well. And then other students would just completely lock their teachers out of the school. So, you know, there's options. Good times. Good times. No, I'm just kidding. I never did that. I was the goody two-shoes in school. I wish I had been a little bit slightly more rebellious and fun, but I was the one with the stick up her ass. So we've definitely come a long way since then. But yeah, the amount of absurd and rather like creative pranks over time does kind of show like how easily persuaded the human race is. We really are just gullible. But yeah, I found my information from a couple different sources online, the history website as well as the Library of Congress blogs. They both had this information on there. But I just kind of wanted to share it because I don't feel like maybe a lot of people necessarily know the history behind it. And we don't even officially know the history. It's just one of those things that kind of came about, which is funny. So, is anybody doing any April Fool's things today? I would love to know in the comments below. As always though, stay safe while doing them and know when you're going too far. I mean, it's always fun to pull some pranks and jokes, but just make sure you stay safe. So the other last thing I wanted to share was about the tarot cards that I was doing last night. So it's been a little bit since I've done tarot, but I really want to connect with my spirit guides and just kind of ask them some questions. Actually, I didn't even really have to ask tons of questions into like what I wanted to talk about because so I have two decks. I have one that has like the runes on it that mean different things, obviously. So what I'm going to start doing in the future, which I think is going to be really helpful, is I'm going to pull a rune card first and be like, what area of my life do I need to kind of be focusing on right now? And so I pulled that rune card and it was all about travel and decisions and spontaneity and like rhythm and like decision making. And so I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense for my life right now. So that card alone made tons of sense. And then I pulled from my Austera deck, tarot, which is very appropriate for this time of the year. I didn't even think about that. In regards to, like, I was like, okay, how many cards do you want me to pull? And at first I got 5, but it ended up only being 4 because none of the other cards were coming out. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And so then I went through each of the cards, but I'm not gonna lie, I have a terrible memory. Like, my memory is the size of a goldfish. It used to be pretty decent until the fibro stuff, and so now I just have fibro fog all the time, and I will misspeak words, I will just forget things straight up. Like, the struggle is real sometimes. So sometimes I do feel just like the stupidest person because I just cannot recall things that I should know. And so tarot is like that. There are some cards that I instantly know what they are. There's other cards where I'm like, I have zero idea what this is supposed to mean. The images aren't speaking to me, the numbers, I can't even recall what the number means, even though I'm fairly decent at knowing that since I do try to work with numerology quite often. But yeah, so anywho, all of a sudden and last night I was actually pretty on. There must be some kind of charged energy in the air because there's like a weird energy, but there's also like this charged energy as well. And I think that could be from the storms coming. I'm just gonna go with that. But I was actually able to, I feel like, feel them and hear them better than I like ever have before, which is awesome because that maybe means that I'm continuing to advance, and slow and steady wins the race. And I find that I really do have to be pretty focused. Things have to be pretty quiet for me to be able to tune in to the spirit realm. Otherwise, my brain gets too overstimulated and I get very distracted. And like I said, I used to be able to tune things out so well and I just can't anymore. So we've got to work with what we're given. And so it was very quiet though, and it was great. And then I have these lanterns sitting in front of me, and some of them have like potpourri and stuff in them. But the one, I don't know why, I must have been desperate when I was packing. I had put pennies in there too. So there's like free ranging pennies in there. Don't ask me why, that's weird. But all of a sudden I just was like, felt this draw to the pennies. And I'm like, why? Why am I even caring about the pennies? And then all of a sudden I like got this idea that I know was not mine. It was not mine. And so I was like, okay, they want me to get the penny out. They want me to grab a penny. And I was like, oh, fine, okay. And they gave me the idea to clarify the cards with the penny. So a lot of the times with tarot, it's very intuitive. It's a deeper reading versus a pendulum, which is more like, you know, yes, no questions. But I didn't necessarily want to get my pendulum out as well and do that whole thing with the tarot cards. So they gave me the idea of using the penny as kind of almost like yes and no answers. So I could clarify the cards. So as I was sitting reviewing each card, I would talk to myself like with whatever input that they were giving me, and then be like, okay, is this right? Yes for heads, no for tails. And so if I needed clarification on any of those cards, I would just do the penny method and it clarified it perfectly. I can't even tell you like how well it worked. Like it worked so well. And like then you can ask, do I need to draw another card for this card to clarify things further? And then they can tell you yes. And so then you draw the top card and you like, it made it so much easier because not only are you getting the chance to kind of get their information that they're sending to you telepathically or high up or above or whatever, you can also get for sure answers of, hey, am I on the right track on this? Am I thinking correctly? Am I receiving the information correctly? And it worked so well. I highly recommend trying that and just telling your spirits, hey, can we try this? Like, I'm going to obviously be listening to you and trying to input the information about what I know the card means and like what I'm getting from you guys, but also if you could clarify this by doing yes or no. I mean, it really made for a very clear reading, and it all made perfect sense, like really perfect sense. So I will definitely be doing that from now on because it just helps. It really does. You know, we don't always remember what all of the cards mean, and sometimes we need a little bit more clarification, but getting out another way of doing it maybe isn't super helpful. So yeah, that is definitely a piece of advice I would give and highly recommend if you just want to try something maybe a little bit different than just purely looking at the tarot cards. If you need a little extra oomph to it, I suggest that. But yeah, I think that's all I have for you today. As always, be kind, stay curious, and always speak your truth, and I will see you next time for another video. Bye!